Good afternoon and welcome to Nutmeg Sports, this Tuesday edition of the show. We are joined today by AJ Simonowski. AJ, I'm happy to have you back as we now will continue our postseason coverage. We're going to look at the field hockey tournament, which you will be covering all week. Let's start with the quarterfinals from Friday afternoon. The top seeds really taking care of business, with the exception of the 4-5 matchup where we saw a more balanced game between Norwalk and New Canaan.
The scores really went pretty much as you would expect. Wilton took care of business against Trumbull. Staples took care of Ludlow pretty handily. Darien against Greenwich. I thought Greenwich would put up a little bit of a better fight against the Wave than they did. Darien shut them out 3-0. And of course you have the 2-1 score, Norwalk over New Canaan. A little surprised to see New Canaan out of the tournament so early. They'll of course make noise in the States as they usually do, but this Norwalk team is for real.
That's the defending Class M state champion New Canaan team. It's the second time this season now that New Canaan has fallen to Norwalk. And I agree, I think they are for real. But what a task they have coming up with the defending state champion Wilton Warriors now.
They really do. And Frank, do you have a coin? Because what you're going to get in the FCX field hockey semifinals is an absolute coin flip. Any one of these four teams could easily make the championship round and take care of business. I would not be surprised if it's the Bears coming up to win. I also wouldn't be shocked if Wilton just cruises to an easy victory. That's how closely matched these teams are.
And of course, these games were moved to Brian McMahon. Originally in the season, they were scheduled for New Canaan, but the turf being new, they said it was a slow track. They moved the games to McMahon. After Norwalk beat New Canaan at the beginning of the year, it was, the turf hasn't been that good yet. We didn't get to see the Rams' best game. Norwalk now backs it up, but they've got a Wilton team here who has cruised all year. But it's kind of crazy because when you look at the records, Wilton 13-0-1-1, Staples 13-0-2, Darien 13-1-1, Norwalk 12-2-1. They've all lost a game, but it's pretty familiar company at the top.
They really have. As I was going through the season's records for these four teams, I came across a pretty staggering fact. When you look at the Wilton team, they tied against Staples just at the end of September, lost in overtime to Norwalk about 2 weeks ago. Staples tied with Wilton, as I said. They lost to Darien also about 2 weeks ago. Darien now lost to Wilton and tied with Staples. The Norwalk Bears lost to Greenwich in overtime. That's the one that's going to really come back and hurt them. But they've also lost to Darien and to Staples. So these four teams have only lost to each other this season. That's remarkable.
They're all very familiar with each other, and you're right. Remarkable is a great way to put it because it's just anyone can beat anyone on any given day. Now we're at the semifinals. These are the final four teams remaining. Let's start with Wilton and Norwalk. Wilton's a defending runner-up in the FCX. This is a new place to be for the Norwalk Bears. We are not used to seeing them in the Final Four for field hockey. How much does the advantage of having been there play into the favor of the Warriors?
I don't think it plays in quite as much as it may seem to the outside. I went back and looked at last year's state playoffs from Class L. Norwalk came in as the 5 seed. They handled the first round pretty well. And then they lost to Cheshire in the second round, Cheshire who went on to the finals and lost to Wilton. So Norwalk does have some postseason experience, even if it's not in the FCAC. I think they'll be able to stick with the Warriors, but ultimately I think Wilton comes out on top.
Obviously, Wilton can score goals, putting up 5 in the first round. Norwalk able to win a close one there. Is this Norwalk having to play better defensively and trying to maybe score 1 to knock off the Warriors or maybe even force this game to overtime or a shootout? Or do they say, let's try to run with Wilton and play to a 4-3, 5-4 kind of game?
I think it may have to be dictated by the early going in this matchup. If Wilton comes out firing like we expect they will, Norwalk may have to shift up, turn up the octane to try and keep with them. If they can keep the Warriors' offense contained, maybe they start to slow it down and try to grind out a 1-0 victory.
Looking at the other matchup now, you've got Staples and Darien, two very familiar foes. Staples coming in the number 2 seed, they're the higher seed. I don't even know if you can give an advantage to either team right now. This truly is a coin flip to me. Which team would you want to pick if you had to at the moment, just based on based off of their last few games coming into the tournament?
I would still have to give the edge to Darien. We have seen this group of girls do so many good things athletically. A lot of returning starters from last year's team, from last year's lacrosse team as well. State champions is there as well. A lot of good underclassmen coming up. I'm a big fan of Katie Elders and what she can do. But like you said, Frank, this game could go either way. I could study this one for a week and not come up with anything.
Darien is the defending FCX champion. We saw them play against Wilton earlier in the season, and Wilton was a 3-1 winner that day. It didn't feel like a 3-1 game. And in fact, Darien scored first, and really until was maybe a minute or two after that goal, Wilton took a timeout. It was all Darien. They were rolling over the Warriors before Wilton turned the tide on them.
It was certainly a game that was not quite as much of a blowout as the score would have you believe. Wilton went ahead. They eventually did tie it at 1-1 and then took the lead, the 2-1 lead on a really bizarre play right around in front of the goal. A mass of bodies and sticks and pads. Somehow the ball managed to roll into the net. Even on our director, Eric Gendron, had to go to the slowest slow motion replay I think he's ever done to determine who actually got a stick on it to put the ball in. But Wilton added an insurance goal later on, but that was a much tighter game than the final score would rely.
It's really going to be an interesting finish through both those games. Again, I agree. Maybe you give an advantage to Wilton. I think the Warriors have got a little too much offensively for Norwalk to compete with, even if it gets to a shootout. Staples, I want to pick the Wreckers, but I just think that Darien has too much experience, and in that game, it does play a factor.
It does, and experience is one of those intangibles. You can only get it by getting there before, and Wilton and Darien both have. So that's an X factor that both of those teams can possess.
Those games are scheduled for tomorrow Those games are scheduled for this afternoon at 6 o'clock and 7:30. You will be on the call, so we look forward to hearing from you, and we hope you have a good one there.
Thank you. I will have a special guest analyst with me that on those games, so keep an eye on our social media. I'm going to keep that one under wraps. I'm a little bit excited to work with her, but I will not be alone in the booth at Jack Casa Field.
Should be a lot of fun. We're going to take a break here on Nutmeg Sports. When we get back, Donald Eng is going to join us, and we'll take a look at the swimming postseason for FCX and the cross-country state championships right here on the HAN Network.
This is now 44 years I've been in this business. Digital came along. After I was in business for about 6 years, I had to totally reinvent the business. So I had to make a tremendous investment in my business. And Milford Bank was there for me. I don't really just consider Milford Bank a bank. I consider them a trusted partner in my business. My name is Jim Wilson, owner of Milford Photo. I choose to bank with Milford Bank.
At InSports Trumbull, the game is always on inside. Recently renovated and home to one of Connecticut's largest indoor turf fields, InSports is a multi-sport recreation center providing state-of-the-art facilities for league play, camps, and youth programs. Sign up now for InSports Passing and Receiving Positional November Soccer Clinic, scheduled for November 19th. Sessions are available for U13 to U14, U15 to U16, and U17 to U19. Featuring college coaches from around the region, this is your official home of Connecticut's Olympic Development Soccer Program. For more information, visit insportcenters.com.
Walter Stewart's Market in New Canaan is your time-saving local shopping destination for the best of spring. Find many of your favorite products, from great specials on everyday items to the freshest organic produce, artisanal cheeses, and grass-fed steaks. Drop off your knives to be sharpened, grab a beautiful bouquet of spring flowers, and stop in next door for a wine tasting. Plus, their personable staff is always ready to lend a helping hand. So stop in to Walter Stewart's Market, 229 Elm Street today, or shop online at stewartsmarket.com.
Hi, this is Leo Carl from Carl Chevrolet in New Canaan, and you've heard me talk about the Chevy Volt for years. The new model gets 53 miles on EV charge daily, plus 420-mile full range. But don't take my word for it. You need to come in and test drive the Volt yourself. Visit us at 261 Elm Street in New Canaan or online at carldirect.com.
I'm John Kovach. I'm a newspaper editor. I'm a high school football coach. I'm a television presenter, and I want you to love fishing as much as I do. Tune in to Yankee Fisherman, Thursdays at 1 on the HAN Network. It's like going to the tackle shop without leaving your office.
If you're watching this broadcast, you're not alone. The HAN Network is available for 200,000 Connecticut cable customers on the Frontier Network, and we've also reached 1.7 million viewers on our free live streaming sports, news, and entertainment broadcasts. To reach our rapidly growing audience, contact Advertising Director Jessica Murrin at 203-273-7312 or email jessica@han.network.
We're back here on Nutmeg Sports on the HAN Network. Frank Granito, and I am joined now in the studio by Donald Eng as we move over to the pool, and we are going to take a look at the swimming standings heading into the postseason, which will begin this afternoon, Don. Swimming has been up to par this year. I think we've got the usual suspects at the top. Who holds the advantage though now as we move towards the postseason play?
Well, I mean, you know, when you're talking about the pool, really it begins and ends with Greenwich. Essentially, year after year, as we've said before, you know, whether we talk about various dynasties in Connecticut sports, and whether we're talking about, you know, like whether it's football or baseball, basketball, but the real dynasty in Connecticut sports is Greenwich swimming year after year after year, and no exception this year as the Cardinals come in undefeated heading into the tournament.
They come in undefeated. They'll be the favorites, like you said. Darien and New Canaan expect to be in the mix, obviously. Ridgefield had a great season as well. New Canaan was a surprise winner in the conference last year. Obviously, that's got to leave a sour taste in the Cardinals' mouth, and you can't count out Darien. What are the odds we could see another upset this season?
I mean, it's not. I don't really think it's that likely. I mean, you know, obviously it could happen. I mean, Ridgefield coming in also undefeated, Darien undefeated. We've got a lot of strong competitive teams, but you know, but the depth of this Cardinal program and the tradition and the history, and really the you would have to say, you know, just you know, the feeling of not winning last year is probably going to drive them. I mean, you know, it's you know, once the kids are swimming, once they're in the pool, you know, anything could happen. But I would be surprised if we had an upset.
Of course, the trials will be held at Greenwich this afternoon at 4 o'clock. Tomorrow at 4:30, you'll have the diving finals from West Hill and the finals from Greenwich on Thursday at 6:30. Don, tomorrow at West Hill, we've got an interesting situation here. Obviously, there was an issue in the pool last week with a coach. There will be chlorine in the water, but we haven't had a chance to really talk about that yet. What's your takeaway from that situation?
You know, it's hard to really get a handle on it because it's kind of been sort of confusingly reported. I guess there was no chlorine in the pool. The pool hadn't been properly treated, and so the kids were swimming in the water. You know, my sense whenever I go into a pool is always like the chlorine smell is the first thing that hits you. If you don't smell it, it's almost like there's something wrong. But I mean, it seems like, you know, they made a mistake, and I guess there's been some sort of disciplinary action taken. But I tend to think of it as just sort of, you know, like you know, mistake. They addressed it and then just kind of move on.
It should be the case. Of course, New Canaan was the champion last year. Ridgefield, the runner-up. They're also coming in, sitting right at the top of the conference. This is a determined Tigers team. Where do you figure they'll finish now compared to Greenwich, Darien, New Canaan? How do they stack up against the top three?
Well, you know, it's really tough to say. I mean, Ridgefield actually, you know, comes in with the undefeated record. It's just, you know, you put it down. They've been competitive with the throughout the season. Really, you throw a blanket over them with any of these teams. Like I said, I would put Greenwich a bit ahead of Ridgefield and Darien, but you know, clearly, you know, the top three up for grabs.
Let's take a look now. We had the state championships for cross country that just finished up. We've got some results for that. Staples again continuing to roll as they are state champions for the second straight year. Why don't you tell us more about that race, Don?
Well, Staples wins Class Double L, beating Danbury, and you know, it's really when you look at it here, looking at some of the results as we go down the list here, as we will go down the list in 1 second. Staples. First of all, I just wanted to mention that also we have the state open coming up, and Staples and Danbury were the top two teams last year, so a couple of. Certainly a couple of familiar faces likely to be coming into the finals. We had Zakir Ahmad of Staples winning in a time of 15:49. That's a 5:07 mile pace. Drew Thompson from Fairfield Prep second. A couple of other runners here from the FCAC. William Brisman of Fairfield Ward fourth, and then a couple of Staples runners, Sunil Green and Benjamin Seipel, finishing sixth and seventh. But overall, a very impressive performance from Staples. Really, pun semi-intended, really running away with the championship.
They did. They had 3 of the top 7 finishes, of course. Will Brisman from Ward was second place in the FCAC championships 2 weeks ago, Charlie Tauble from Trumbull has a great finish there for the Eagles. Terrell Cunningham and Dan Nichols of Danbury also finishing in the top 20. Why don't you tell us more about the girls' side for Double L, Don?
Well, on the girls' side, it was Ridgefield with the impressive win. When you look down the list here, Caitlin Romantic of Trumbull actually won the race for the Eagles, but you had Ridgefield runner Tess Pisanelli in 5th. And then also going down a little bit farther, you had Casey McGerald, Rachel Mao in 10th and 11th place. And also, for next year, just something to keep your eye on, you had seniors taking the first 4 spots, led by Romantic in a time of 19 minutes, 22 seconds. But then you get down the list, 5th place and 6th place. Pisanelli and Harris, Zoe Harris of Greenwich, a couple of freshmen there, finishing 5th and 6th, and then some of the underclassmen coming up. Casey McGerald and Rachel. Casey McGerald, also a sophomore for Ridgefield. So one class graduates, and then it's the next runner-up. Lot of young talent coming through the pipeline for the Tigers.
And another dominant performance on the track for Ridgefield. Of course, we talk about next year in the FCAC, the junior Morgan McCormick in the girls Class L race, winning again for Wilton. She finished with a time of 18:50. The next closest finisher from Mercy was at 19:41. She was on a 15-second faster pace through her race. So we expect to see big things again from McCormick next year and really have the Wilton team in contention along with her individual self.
Yeah, a 6:05 pace for Morgan McCormick. The second place runner from Mercy, 6:21. So that's 16 seconds faster per mile over the course of a race. That's that's what you call a horizon finish, where you cross the finish line, you turn around, and the next runner is just coming up over the horizon.
And Wilton, of course, finishing second in that race overall. Don, I want to thank you for coming on with us again today. We'll see you tomorrow, or Wednesday. You're out tomorrow, Wednesday afternoon. We've got Dave Stewart in with us. We're going to take one more break, but when we get back, Kevin Coleman is going to stand at that desk, and we will take a look at the girls' soccer semifinals set for this afternoon right here on the HAN Network.
1, 2, 3, Abby! You know! I want to find out how good I am. Yes, sir! If you relax, you get blown out. Let's get it done! Let's get it done!
What can you take advantage of right now?
Again, come on! I can push myself way beyond what you think. Pressure technique. Bring it back.
Want a new experience in car buying? No aggravation, no confrontation, just answers to all your questions. Scap Chrysler Jeep Dodge Ram, car buying the way you want it to be. With one of the largest selections of new 2- and 4-door Jeep Wranglers available, we are Connecticut's Wrangler headquarters. Located in Fairfield, Connecticut, we're easy to get to. Just 2.5 miles off the Merritt Parkway, exit 44 via Route 58 South. Save thousands right now during the Jeep Celebration event and Ram Power Days. Ends October 31st.
Connecticut is coming back to hometown banking, to a partner that makes small businesses feel big, where community comes first, where high-tech tools go hand in hand with a human touch, where you get the know-how only neighbors can deliver, where saving time is important too. It's time to expect more. It's time to bank well, bank smart, bank local, bank well.
Have a sports injury or a slip and fall that needs immediate care? Coastal Ortho Express Urgent Care gives you direct access to an orthopedic specialist fast, without an appointment. Biking, golf, tennis, soccer, whatever the sports injury is, sprain or fracture, Coastal Ortho Express can help. Coastal Ortho Express Urgent Care, open Monday through Saturday, now in 2 locations. The iPark building at 761 Main Avenue in Norwalk, and 36 Old Kings Highway South in Darien. Or go to coastalorthoexpress.com, like them on Facebook.
Give your day a jumpstart with the latest news, sports, weather, and more on Coffee Break, live on the HAN Network, weekdays at 11 a.m. Connecticut news doesn't get any more local than on Coffee Break.
On Election Day in Connecticut, the HAN Network has you covered with real-time results and analysis.
Will your town vote for Trump or for Clinton?
And who will be representing you in Hartford and in Washington, D.C.? HAN's news reporters and editors will be out in the field talking to the candidates, collecting results, and we'll be breaking it all down on air with live local analysis you won't find anywhere else.
Watch Connecticut Election Night 2016 live starting at 8 p.m. on HAN.network.
I really wanted something that felt like a home. Coming from a big house, I wanted the feel of a home as opposed to a condo. New Canaan is 6 minutes down the road. New Canaan's a beautiful little town to walk around. I work in Westport. My commute is 20 minutes. It's close to Westchester where my family is, so the location is ideal. There is no other townhome that compares in the area. This is where I want to be.
Welcome back to Nutmeg Sports here on the HAN Network. Frank Granito and Kevin Coleman back in studio now. Kevin, we had you for boys soccer yesterday. We're going to take a look at the girls' side of the pitch before we've got the semifinals this afternoon. You left us with a little teaser yesterday talking about the number 1 seed St. Joe's struggling a little bit. Oof. What an exciting win. I don't know if they'd use the word exciting, but what a match between St. Joe's and Ward.
Just a heartbreaker for Ward. I mean, this is a team we saw last week play a great game against Staples, a 1-1 draw, and they came out and played really well against the number 1 seed. Credit, the Mustangs coming out and putting the pressure on this number 1 seed, going to PKs. It must have been very difficult for St. Joe's because they haven't had a contest like that all year.
And I think the big thing, though, if St. Joe's is forced to go to PKs again at any point in time during the tournament, that's just so many weapons to have go up and shoot. I mean, you scored 4 out of 5 times right there, which is just impressive enough in itself.
And they have, Savko up front, which a name itself she's been great all year. And, now they have experience. Maybe if they go to PKs now in the semifinals or the finals, they have that experience and the thrill of going to a PK.
The other scores from the quarterfinal matchups on Friday, you had Ridgefield over Trumbull 2-0, Staples over Darien 4-1, Wilton and West Hill also playing to PKs. Wilton wins 4-2 on PKs. Let's start now with the semifinal matchups, and let's go to Wilton and St. Joe's. You've got the 5 seed and the 1 seed. Both teams coming off 4-2 wins on penalty kicks. For Wilton, do they look at the matchup that St. Joe's just play and say, if Ward can take them to PKs, there's no reason we can't hang with St. Joe's?
Definitely. I think they should look at the tape from that game. And something that the Mustangs did, which was really smart, was they put pressure on early. A lot of shots on net. Even if they weren't great shots, they were just well contested. Just put shots on net, pressure that back four of St. Joe's, and they did that. And that's the reason why that game went to PK. So if you're Wilton, maybe go on the same idea. Put pressure on the first 10 minutes. If you can get maybe 5 shots on net in the first 10 minutes, that's great. Put pressure on that St. Joe's team. But if you're St. Joe's, you can't take this team lightly.
Is this, and that's my next question, was this a reality check for the cadets who might have come in just saying we're going to be able to cruise to that championship game and we're, where we'll most likely face Ridgefield, and which you can't do in this conference. You can't do that, Kevin. I'm sorry.
On paper, it looks like we'll see those two teams play each other, but you're right. In this tournament, you never know who's going to win. The 5 seed could upset the number 1 seed. We could see that happen. And this is a game that, if you're St. Joe's, you can't take lightly. You were just contesting, went to PKs against Ward. Now you're going up against a good, even better Warriors team. So this is a game that I think if you're St. Joe's, you really need to be careful. And them too, they need to put pressure on early, prove that they're the number 1 seed.
And this is a Warriors team that knocked off the West Hill Vikings, who I was all in on. I mean, that was another great match. We talked about it too last week that we expected to see several of the games from both sides go to PKs. You're going to have these tight matchups where anyone is able to win, and it has not disappointed yet. So you've got number 1 St. Joe's and number 5 Wilton. That coming up at 5 p.m. this afternoon. On the other side, you've got Ridgefield and Staples. This is an interesting matchup. Your Tigers, though, have looked very strong down the stretch here, Kevin. What do the Wreckers have to do to keep up with that high-powered offense?
That back four for Staples needs to tighten up a little bit. They were a little flat in the second half last week that we saw against Ward. They need to tighten up a little bit. Ashley Wright needs to put some pressure on up top. She's gifted. She scored 2 goals in the quarterfinals, and she's someone that needs to break out in this game against Ridgefield if they want to have success.
Ridgefield with the 2-0 win over Trumbull in the quarters, but Katie Damron and Alex Jasminski are going to be the 2 most important players. They struggled a little bit during the 2-loss stretch, but Jasminski then has scored 16 goals, or excuse me, the Tigers offense has scored 16 goals in their 4 final games of the regular season. How do they keep the momentum up now?
Keep it going. Plain and simple. Keep it going. Put the pressure on. They have the high-power offense. They proved it all season long. They have goal scorers. Even on the defensive side, these center backs and outside backs can score off, free kicks or corner kicks or whatever it may be. But this is a Ridgefield team that's very strong. They're looking to defend that FCX title that they won last year.
If you've got to pick 2 teams that you think we'll see in the championship, Kevin, who are they and why?
Oh, that's tough. I think I'm going to have to stick with number 1 playing number 2. It's going to be St. Joe's versus Ridgefield. Both semifinal games are going to be so close, though. I think the closer game is going to be the Wilton-St. Joe's game. I think that's going to be a very close game. Of course, playing at Wilton High School, this is going to be an interesting match. This is basically a home game for Wilton. So coming home, playing in semifinals against number 1 seed, I think you may see St. Joe's have a little stroke because the Warriors have a good fan base. They've proven in the past, so they're going to be behind their team coming up at 5 o'clock. That's going to be a great game, but I think at the end of the day, St. Joe's knows how to pull out the tight games. They proved it in the quarterfinals. I think we're going to see St. Joe's and Ridgefield.
Should be a lot of fun. Coverage for that will not be from the HAN Network. We've got that game. We will be at the boys' games this afternoon. The girls are set for 5 o'clock and 7 o'clock from Wilton. The finals, which we will have, will be Thursday afternoon at 4:30. Kevin, we got to get out of here, get over to Ludlow. We've got boys soccer semifinals coming up. Should be a lot of fun tonight.
Oh, I'm so amped up for these 2 games. It's going to be a lot of fun. A lot of good soccer on the way, so be sure to tune in.
A lot of good soccer. We've got great field hockey going on, too. AJ Simonowski will be there. We'll have coverage of volleyball throughout the week, and, of course, the girls' championships as well. Thank you to Kevin, AJ, and Don, of course. And we will see you later on this afternoon with boys soccer playoffs. And, of course, tomorrow you've got Coffee Break at 11 with Kate Shaplensky. It is Wednesday, which means CT Pulse at 12:30 with Josh and Kate. And then we'll have Nutmeg Sports at 2 o'clock right here on the HAN Network.